Now that Sharon Engel has won the Republican nomination for Senate to run against Harry Reid in Nevada, now the fun part. Now the fun part is watching the national Republican political establishment try to figure out what to do with Sharon Engel. Try to figure out how to balance that national Republican frothing, clamoring, heart-racing desire to beat Harry Reid with the fact that their candidate against Harry Reid thinks that fluoride in drinking water is a conspiracy and recently suggested that beer should be illegal. Sow's ear, can you become a silk purse? Can you? Let's start with your website. Here was Sharon Engel's website before she won the Republican primary this week. Here is Sharon Engel's new and improved, oh my God, she's actually the candidate now website after it was hijacked and scrubbed by the same online Republican PR company that brought us Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown and Virginia Governor Just Say No to Fornicators Bob McDonnell and Americans for Prosperity, the corporate-funded fake grassroots group that hosted those bus tours against health reform featuring speakers who compared health reform to the Holocaust and to the Khmer Rouge. The same online PR company that put a shine on those folks is also now putting quite a shine on Beware the Fluoride Senate candidate Sharon Engel. So in the place of Engel's old pre-spin doctored website, which sort of looked like a MySpace page for a local John Birch Society softball team, there is now a pretty professional-looking splash page which got a fancy online donation feature with scrolling names of recent donors. On the old Sharon Engel website, she pledges that, quote, the well-being and safety of those in the theater of war should not and cannot be minimalized. On the new Sharon Engel website, it says the well-being and safety of those in the theater of war should not and cannot be minimized. Depending on your point of view, that's either Sharon Engel becoming more ready for prime time or that's Sharon Engel totally selling out to the man. As this campaign goes on and the national Republican establishment has to decide whether they are really going to hitch their wagon to Sharon Engel, whether they're really going to consign every other Republican running in the country to saying whether or not they agree with Sharon Engel on issues like fluoridation and making beer illegal. The website and its cached copies and the screenshots that are available online via stuff like the Wayback Machine, that stuff that is evidence of what she used to admit to is going to be the place to stay apprised of just how much the man is going to be able to homogenize the pure, bracing, ideological hit of nitrous that is the political genius of Sharon Engel. When Sharon Engel pledges that the 67,000 pages of IRS tax code designed to reward friends and punish enemies must be abolished, who among the Republican establishment is going to say, yes, Sharon Engel, our standard bearer in Nevada, is someone who we agree with on this? We, too, believe the tax code has been designed as a giant conspiracy and must be abolished. Will that be you, John McCain, Mitch McConnell, John Ensign? How do you feel about your would-be home state Senate buddy? Do you also think the IRS is a giant conspiracy? When Sharon Engel pledges that Sharon Engel, I know it's awkward, but she really does always refer to herself in the third person online. When Sharon Engel pledges that Sharon Engel will work toward making a basket of commodities, metals, oil, etc., as a basis for maintaining the value of the U.S. currency, with Sharon Engel on record pledging that basket of commodities, will that have to be excised from her newer, shined-up website? Or will the John McCains and Mitch McConnells and John Ensigns and Michael Steeles of the world also have to pledge that Republicans agree with her, that the price of oil and gold and I don't know what counts as other metals, tin, zinc? The price of zinc ought to determine the value of the dollar. Some cross maybe between the price of zinc and the price of a barrel of oil. That's going to determine the value of the dollar. Everybody on board with that? When Sharon Engel pontificates aloud about a shortage of ammunition in America and asks whether Americans are preparing to fight for their liberty in more Second Amendment kinds of ways, when she says if we don't win at the ballot box, what will be the next step? National Republican Senatorial Committee, do you agree? You in agreement with the candidate you're touting in Nevada who says that maybe a Second Amendment kind of fight is at hand if you don't get your way in the elections, and that's maybe why people are buying lots of ammo? Is everybody on board with that? The scrubbing of Sharon Engel's political history is already well underway. In this day and age, though, the effort to erase history and turn Sharon Engel into a mainstream conservative Sort of depends on everyone mass forgetting how to use the Google. And, that could happen if we are all brainwashed because of the fluoride. Be careful. Joining us now is Jonathan Humbert, investigative reporter with KLAS in Las Vegas, Nevada. John, thanks very much for joining us.
Absolutely, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
So the rest of the country is just getting to know Sharon Engel, and boy, howdy, is it nice to meet you. But to Nevadans, is she already a household name?
Well, she has been for a few years up north, but this was really the first exposure that people had to Sharon Engel. But for those folks up in the north, they have to realize that Sharon Engel's experience in the Assembly and then later in a Senate run was to go after one of the scions of politics up north, Bill Raggio, the state Senate leader for many years, the voice of moderates. She wanted to push him from the right, and this is a man who has a bust of himself in the Reno Tahoe International Airport. He is so beloved, and instead she went after him for not being conservative enough, despite his steady leadership in the Senate in Nevada. So you have to think about what Sharon Engel represents to the folks up there. They certainly did not appreciate her efforts to try to join the state Senate. And now you have to look at the evolution that she has had over the last few years. Not even a year ago, just under a year ago, she was in a back room, cloistered in the back of an off-strip casino, talking with who eventually became one of the big leaders in the Tea Party movement. And there were maybe 15 people in the room, elderly folks who were supporting Sharon Engel, who knew who she was, and she was still tinkering around with the idea of joining the campaign and going after Harry Reid. And there was a collective sigh almost, or shrug of the shoulders, as to who this candidate was. So it speaks very well to her cozying up with the Tea Party folks and the success that has brought her to make her a household name. But definitely Pandora's box is open for her.
In terms of the Tea Party angle and how she, on how she got elected and sort of the playbook that she put together toward winning this Senate nomination, was that something that was mostly from out of state? Was she essentially supported by national activist Tea Party conservatives more than she was by any homegrown Tea Party movement?
Well, the homegrown Tea Party movement is relatively small in Nevada, so for all this groundswell of support and people talking about having the hats and the parties and the rallies, these were out-of-state folks who came in, who've helped with the campaign, who've pushed her at the last few weeks and pushed her over the top in a convincing fashion. But this is not a local Nevada movement from what everyone has been able to see. These are folks, as you saw with the website, you brought up some of those issues that out-of-state elements are getting involved in helping that. But those out-of-state elements are also going to try to refocus this campaign. She's going to be going to D.C. in the next couple of weeks and working with some of those bigwigs back there, meeting with John Cornyn and others, and they're going to hopefully cajole and push her to try to get closer to what they want to see, because it doesn't appear right now that what she's saying, that huge list of issues that hasn't changed other than a few grammatic points, definitely could be weighing her down. But this is an outside campaign helping her out at this point.
Well, is it possible, as Republicans, national Republicans, establishment Republicans, try to sort of take some of the rough edges off of her, make her seem maybe less ideologically out there, is it possible that Sharon Engel will try to resist that she'll sort of try to keep it real, keep the fluoride stuff and the UN conspiracy theories and stuff, to keep those things in her campaign?
Well, again, they talked about the grammar and fixing some of those issues today, but we went through the policy once again to see if any wording had changed there now that some folks have had a couple days to pore over Sharon Engel's record, try to fix things perhaps and focus on it. But again, these are untenable positions for many Nevada politicians. Supporting Yucca Mountain, 100 miles away from Las Vegas, nuclear dump right in our backyard. That's something that not even incumbent Governor Jim Gibbons, who lost in resounding fashion, would support. So you have to look at those policy positions, literally saying transitioning out of Social Security. We have a large elderly contingent here in Nevada, particularly in Las Vegas, veterans as well. And to hear the fact that she wants to move away from Social Security or downplay the benefits that those folks get, that's no way for a politician to be running for a lot of those Republicans. They have to look at that and look at that elderly base and be scared that she's talking about some of these issues. Those aren't just two of the many positions that don't quite jibe with what the folks here want.
Jonathan Humbert, an investigative reporter with KLAS in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks for your reporting on this, and thanks for your time tonight, John. It's nice to see you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Rachel.
So imagine what would happen if BP had spilled coffee over a conference table instead of oil all over the Gulf. How would they respond?
According to the charts, that's the best plan of action.
Yeah, great.
Don't worry about it. It's a small spill on a very large table.
The Upright Citizens Brigade provides the first piece of tape about Tony Hayward and BP that is more funny than it is infuriating. That's ahead.